The Life of David Livingston, Part 7. Quote, when a lion is met in the daytime, a circumstance by no means unfrequent to travelers in these parts, if provoked, notions do not lead them to expect something very noble or majestic. They will see merely an animal, somewhat larger than the biggest dog they ever saw, and partaking very strongly of the canine features. The face is not much like the usual drawings of a lion, the nose being prolonged like a dog's, not exactly such as our painters make it, though they might learn better at a zoological garden, their ideas of majesty being usually shown by making the lions' faces like old women's at night in nightcaps. When encountered in the daytime, the lion stands a second or two, gazing, then turns slowly round and walks and slowly away for a dozen paces, looking over its shoulder. It then begins to trot, and when he thinks himself out of sight, bounds off like a greyhound. By day, there is not, as a rule, the smallest danger for lions, which are not molested, attacking man, nor even on a clear moonlight night, except when they possess the breeding storge. This makes them brave almost any danger, and if a man happens to cross to the windward side of them, both lion and lioness will rush at them, in manner of a bitch with whelps. This does not often happen, as I only became aware of it 2 or 3 instances. In one case, a man passing where the wind blew from him to the animals was bitten before he could climb a tree, and occasionally a man on horseback has been caught by the leg under the same circumstances. So in general, however, is the sense of security on moonlit nights that we seldom tied up our oxen, but let them lie loose by our wagons. While on a dark rainy night, if a lion is in the neighborhood, he is almost sure to venture and kill an ox. His approach is always stealthy, except when wounded, and any appearance of a trap is enough to cause him to refrain from making his last spring. This seems characteristic of the feline species. When a goat is picketed in India for the purpose of enabling the huntsman to shoot a tiger by night, if on a plain he would whip off the animal so quickly by a stroke of the paw that no one could take aim. To obviate this, a small pit is dug, and the goat is picketed to a stake in the bottom. A small stone is tied to the ear of the goat, which makes him cry the whole night long. When the tiger sees the appearance of a trap, he walks around the pit and allows the hunter who is lying in wait to have a fair shot. When a lion is very hungry, the lying in wait, the sight of the animal may make him commence stalking it. In one case, a man, while stealthily crawling towards a rhinoceros, happened to glance behind him and found to his horror a lion stalking him. He only escaped by springing up a tree like a cat. At Le Pepe, a lioness sprang on the after quarter of Mr. Oswald's horse, and when we came up to him, we found the marks of the claws on the horse and a scratch on Mr. O's hand. The horse, on feeling the lion on him, sprang away, and the rider, caught by the by a wait-a-bit thorn, was brought to the ground and rendered insensible. His dog saved him. Another English gentleman was surprised in the same way, though not hunting the lion at the time, but turning round, he shot him dead in the neck. By accident, a horse belonging to Corrigan ran away, but was stopped by the bridle catching the stump. There he remained a prisoner 2 days, and when found the whole space round was marked with footprints of lions. They had evidently been afraid to attack the haltered horse, from fear that it was a trap. 2 lions came up by night to within 3 yards of the oxen tied to the wagon, and a sheep tied to a tree, and stood roaring, but afraid to make a spring. On another occasion, one of the party was lying sound asleep and unconscious of danger between 2 natives behind a bush at Mouchet. The fire was nearly out, and their feet, in consequence of all being completely tired by the fatigues of the previous day, a lion came up to within 3 yards of the fire, and there commenced in roaring instead of making a spring. The fact of their riding ox being tied at the bush was the only reason the lion had for not following his instinct and making meal of flesh. He then stood on a knoll 300 yards distant and roared all night, and continued his growling as the party moved off by daylight into the next morning. Nothing that I ever learned of the lion would lead me to attribute to it either the ferocious or the noble character ascribed to it elsewhere. It possesses none of the nobility of the Newfoundland or St. Bernard dogs. With respect to its great strength, there can be no doubt. The immense masses of muscle around its jaws, shoulders, forearms proclaim tremendous force. They would seem, however, to be inferior in power to those of the Indian tiger. Most of those feats of strength that I have seen performed by lions, such as the taking away of an ox, were not carrying, but dragging or trailing the carcass along the ground. They have sprung, on occasions, on the hind quarters of a horse, but no one has ever seen them on the withers of a giraffe. They do not mount on the hindquarters of an eland even, but they try to tear him down with their claws. Messrs. Oswald and Verdun once saw 3 lions endeavoring to drag down a buffalo, and they were unable to do so for a time, though he was then mortally wounded by a 2-ounce ball. By a 2-ounce ball. What does that mean? Like a bullet? In general, the lion seizes the animal he is attacking by the flank, near the hind leg, or by the throat below the jaw. It is questionable whether he ever attempts to seize the animal by the withers. The flank is the most common point of attack, and that is the part that begins to feast on first. The natives and lions are very familiar with their tastes and in the selection of tidbits. The eland may be seen disemboweled by a lion so completely that it scarcely seems to cut up at all. The bowels and fatty parts form a full meal for even the largest lion. The jackal comes sniffling about and sometimes suffers for his timidity, temerity by a stroke of the lion's paw, lying him dead. When gorged, the lion falls fast asleep and is then easily dispatched. Hunting a lion with dogs involves very little danger compared with hunting the Indian tiger, because the dogs bring him out of the cover and make him stand at bay, giving the hunter plenty of time for a good and deliberate shot. Where game is abundant, there you may expect lions to proportionately large numbers. They are never seen in herds, but 6 or 8, probably one family, occasionally hunt together. One is one is in much more danger of being run over when walking in the streets of London than he is being devoured by a lion in Africa, unless engaged in hunting the animal. Indeed, nothing that I have seen or heard about lions would constitute a barrier in the way of men of ordinary courage and enterprise.